So let's start with lecture number 2.3, and this will cover objects and modules, basically the basics. So what is a module? A module is a file or a collection of code that you can use in other programs, right? So basically I made a program here. Let's assume that this box is my program, and I have another set of program somewhere else. What I can do is just simply use this right here. Okay, that's how simple it gets. Okay, in JavaScript, modules help you organize code into separate files and share code between them. Okay, so you'll will have to elaborate what does this line exactly mean, but we'll come back to this once we are complete with the explanation of the whole thing, right? Let me have a sip of water. Import and export. You can export things from one file and then import them into the other, right? So let's say in module1.js we have export constant c with this id, which is provided here, and then function energym. This function returns m.c.c. Okay, so for any number it will square it and then multiply with a given number, given entry that is here. Okay, remember that this is a way of writing function which is taught in week 1. And in the other file, what we'll need to do is import c, this constant c, and the energy function itself, from this location. See, this location, from inside quotes, this location. Now let me show this. So suppose we have two separate files. Let's call this bunny. Mind my spelling, I'm writing with a mouse. And let's call it 8. Let's call this file 8. Okay, this is the location of bunny. Okay, actually this is the name, but you get the point, है ना? And we have called this file here in the file 8. After all of this hodgepodge, when we call the function energy2, which is located here in this file, it does get called, and according to this definition of the function that is defined, it gives us the result. Why is it not showing us the result? However, I think the result should be square of this times 2. Let's write this number to be something logical. Let's call it 10. Okay, so 10 square, okay, 10 square 100, 100 times 2, 200. Alright, for the modules to work in HTML, include your script with type and then between the quotes, double quotes, module. Okay, so in your HTML code, you'll have to write this src main.js, and the type should be initially mentioned, that is module. And let's elaborate this line. Control C. Where is perplexity? So let's see what perplexity says. So modules are fundamental feature that help you organize code into separate files and share code between them. This modular approach is especially important as the JavaScript program grows larger and more complex, whether in browser or in server with Node.js. What is a module? It is a file containing variable functions and classes that can be used in other parts of your program. And modules help break down big projects into smaller manageable sections. Modules can be imported and exported using special syntax. And apart from this, why use modules? Why do we use modules, right? Basically, separation of concern. Each module handles a specific feature. These are reusable, namespace management. Basically, modules keep variables and functions scoped to the module, preventing name conflicts in global scope, right? Teams can work on different modules independently, making teamwork easier. How do you use modules? Basically, export function. You're exporting this function from math.js module, and you're importing this function from math.js module using the path, and then using the function add from right here, and printing it using console.log. All right. Let's move on to what is object in Java. An object is a collection of key value pairs. Okay, we have already defined what an object is earlier. Okay, so this is an object which has a key, and that particular key has a value which can be string, name, or a function. All right, we can print a specific part and also the function inside the object. Adding methods to objects, so you can add functions as properties to a given object. Okay, so for a particular object, the functions inside that object which will be used as properties are called methods. So from now on, the word method will be used more often. We have an example here. So we have a calculator object which has key a assigned the value y, and another key add which has been assigned a function. Okay, when we print this using using the add key, and giving that key, since it's a function, we are also providing a value. This turns us 15. This turns out to be 15. Why? Because x inside the function is 10, and 10 plus a, which is 5, becomes 15. Simple. Simple. Let's study about copying objects. Okay, so reference versus copy. So if you assign one object to another, both variable points to the same object, okay, which is called reference. Changing one will change the other. So let's say in the example, let's say you have array. No, you have an object, and you have also assigned another variable to that object. If you do some chedkhani, some masti with this initial object, and then what you do is you print y dot a, then the value inside the y is also changed. So x dot a, that is the value of this key, is changed from 5 to 3. So since it's changed inside the original x and we have assigned y equals x, the value inside the y is also changed. Unlike in Python, this would not have happened. Y would have been an individual variable, individual element, but that is not the case. Here in JavaScript, if you change one, the other will change too. Alright, to make a copy, use spread operator. Okay, so if you have z, that is using spread operator to fill in the blank, and you do some masti with x. Okay, masti with x, the elements of x, keys of x. Okay, however, when you print z using the spread operator, the z will not change at all. All right, the modules, and let's move on to modules and exports. You can export variables, functions, or classes from a module. We all know that, and you can also import them into another file. What we did not know was that we can rename these. We can somehow rename these. All right. Okay, this is a big example. Is there some way to? No worries. Let's just push the example into another one. Okay, another page. In module1.js, export the constant that is a variable having the speed of light. Okay, so that was what was given earlier. Okay, and then export another function m, then which does e equals mc square. Okay, okay, okay. So this is e equals mc square. Let me write this here. Let me write this here. E equals m, then c. Okay, there's nothing to do this. Okay, squared, mc squared. Okay, in another file we have imported the constant that is speed of light as a variable c and the function energy. Okay, from, always remember, where are you importing from the location dot module.js dot slash. Okay, so apparently this portion, this quote, then dot slash, then the location or the name of the file will give you from the location from where you are importing what, importing modules. Okay, default export, you can export one thing as the default from another module. Okay, so if we export default, if you use export default function energy m, another file import energy from module.js. What the hell does this mean? Let's ask GPT to explain this furthermore and a bit more in detail. Uh, we know how to import. Let's just read about default. Okay, let's just read what default is. All right. Okay, I always have to come back and check whether this is going properly or not, because if anything goes wrong, I'm F. So defining a default export allows you to export a single value. Okay, okay. This feature is a part of ES6 module and is especially useful when your module is meant to provide one primary thing. Okay, or you can export default. Okay, or you can export default value. You can only have one default per module. No curly braces on import. Default exports are imported without curly braces. Name export versus default export. You can have multiple named exports, but only one default export per file. Okay. You can combine default and named export. Okay. We are combining default export and name export. But why do we need? Then what's so special special about the default export? A single main export, you can only have one default. This is useful when your file is meant to provide one primary thing like a main function or a React component. Flexible import naming, when you import a default export you can give it any name, regardless of what it was called. Okay, what it was called in original file. Okay, okay, okay. So we can name it. Is this its speciality? No, no, that's not the case, because we are also assigning a name. to a normal export. One more thing, that is we do not need curly braces. That is one more thing. Okay, when your file is focused on exporting one main thing like a utility or a function. Okay, so basically name exports can export multiple things and default can only do for single thing. Okay, this is for consumer and this is for names. Let's move on. If I find something more useful, I'll just add it to the comments. Okay, objects as dictionary. You can use objects to store data with name keys just like dictionary. Yes, that's what exactly what we have been doing. Here keys are slice, Bob, Carol, and the values are 90, 85, and 92. If we print the scores, which was the name of this object, and go on to the key Alice, the value inside it would be printed. To loop through the keys and values, okay, let's do this. To loop through keys and values for constant key in scores, console.log, key score and key. So this is the function to loop through the keys. Classes and prototypes. JavaScript uses prototypes for inheritance, sharing properties, methods between objects. Okay. So there's a function in some object, then you need it in another object. You can use prototype for its inheritance from one file to another. And modern JavaScript has started to support class keyword for cleaner syntax. Okay. So for a class animal, that is for an object animal, we have constructor name, and this name equals name. Then this does something, that is this object has a function, which function will do, this function will do, it will write this dot name, apparently the name that you will input, and make a sound. This will be a string. So let dog equals to new animal and input it as a new entry inside the object. When we apply dog.speak, that is when we call the function inside this object animal, what it will do is this dot name, that is dog, which is written right here, and then the string which will follow, that is makes a sound. Let's go on to the activity question, as there's just key takeaways and summary in the 8th section. Alright, let's do this. Which of the following is correct? Shows the correct output. If the program written below is executed, we have a function and array. We map the function. So what it does is returns x percentage 2, which is the remainder that is left when it's divided by 2. So it's either 1 or it's either 0. Since all of these are odd numbers, it will all be 1. Okay. Which of the following shows the correct output if the program written below is executed? We have an array and another array with A. This is destructuring, classic case of destructuring. Okay, why is it so thick? I'll write it in its entirety. You can skip. Ring, destructuring. Okay, and since it's destructuring and we're finding it the value of C, How do I remove this? Since C here has an index value of 1 and index value 1 in the A has value 2, so C will be assigned value 2. Okay, that was easy. Okay, reference error, I guess in this one there will be a reference error because this is not an array. Which of the following shows the correct output if the program written below is executed? So we have 1, 2, 3, and then B, which is filled with the remaining, B's remaining part is filled with C, which comes out to be A. Okay, so I guess the first element of A will be B, and the remaining elements, that is 2 and 3, will come into C. This part will come inside C. Okay. What will be the output of the following program? The output of the following program would be, you have a new array which has 5 undefined blocks, uh, 1 1, 3, and the rest is undefined. You have another empty uh, array made. So for I in x, every that is iterating through every element of x, y dot push I. So 1, 3, and then undefined. Basically the length would come out to be 2 or 5. So let's go with 2 first. Okay, because the undefined will have null values. No, it won't have null values. Basically the undefined value would not get pushed inside the y. Okay, and luckily all of our answers are correct this time. Let's move on to 2.4. Give me some time. The screen is going black, and for the people watching in video, thanks for watching.